Hi, my name is Walter Bringle. For those of you who don't know me, this is your first time, welcome. I'm here with Renee Tetro. Want to say hi?
Hello, everyone.
Um, so let's get it kicked off, I guess. Let's see. Still share. I'm going to close this session. Okay, I should still be sharing.
Looks good. Match the other join. Very good.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about match, the other join. So let's just jump right in. So when would you use a match or join, or we even have file, which we'll probably talk about in a future session. But when your report requires data from many different sources, that's when you're going to try to do these extra techniques. You want to join to another data source, another table. You might want to match, and you're going to use match when you want to merge data. So you might want to add additional records, or you might not. You just want to get information. And then more just basically appends at the end of a file. So let's just jump in. So on a match, you have two files. You have your old file and the new file. So the old file would be the first file in the request, and then the new would be the second. You're going to then merge them together and then create an output hold file. That output hold file is going to be determined based on the different parameters that you set in the match. You can, let's just jump in here. All right, so you're going to use your by phrases to control how you're matching up the data. So that would be like the key if you're doing a join, I'm going to join country in car one to country in car two. So you're going to match by car, and then in the first request, and then in the second request, you're also going to match by car. Note this: the second line to match must have the same name as in the request. So if I have different field names, so if I have car one in the first file and car two in the second file, I'd have to do an as car one in the second request so that they match up. The match keys don't have to be the same. You can match two files that don't have anything in common. All right, your output record is based on the common keys plus any associated verb objects. We have a setting match column order, which we'll get into later, because we used to, and I'll explain it later, but we used to have a certain order of the fields, and we've kind of changed that. And the match column order lets you go back to the old output. So again, I'm surprised I don't have an example already. But in your request, you're going to have a full table request. So you're going to have match file, file name. You're going to have a verb, and then you're going to have your bys, and you're going to have your where conditions. So if you do a sum, we're going to aggregate everything based on the by levels, just like a normal table request. If you do a print, same thing, you get the detail records. So you get one output for every row, whereas some, you're probably going to do some sort of aggregation. And then this is where you get a difference between join. A join will let you join file A to file B. And then you have to decide, is it an inner or is it a left outer? And in some cases, you could do a right outer or a full. On match, you have a lot more flexibility. So here we can do old or new, which would be like a full outer join. You can do old and new, which will give you only what's in the old and what's in the new, but not what's in, I'm sorry, it'll give you only what's in both. Old, not new, will give you records in the old, but aren't in the new. And you can see through the list. Another interesting one is old nor new, where you only get a combo of the old, not new, and the new, not old. So there's a lot of flexibility depending on what you want to see in your output. Now, all right, let's keep going. Wow, I'm gonna have to update this and actually put some code in here before I get this deep. Let me find code. All right, so here's an easy example, and I'll go back to those other slides. But basically, we have match file 1. You have your verb. So here I'm going to look at the different combinations of sum and print, and we're going to do country and dcost by column N. And then you do a run. So instead of doing an end like you do on a table request, we're going to put the word run, and then it says that's the end of this procedure. Then we're going to do file 2, which again is its own independent request, basically. And you're going to have another verb and then your fields. So this time I'm going to do car and R cost, also by N. And then I'm saying after match, I want to hold old or new. So I'm going to get back the union of the two files. Okay, there should be an end at the end of that, which I'm not quite sure where it went. All right, so we have match file, file 1, verb by anywhere conditions, run, file 2, verb objects, sort conditions, and then filters on for file 2. So again, each one is independent, and then the result of each of those individual queries then gets merged together. Okay, I'm going to go back now. Okay. So you can have different levels of match. So you can have match file, file 1, and then your request run. And then you can have file, file 2, your request. And then if you want to take the result of those two, you can add another file. So you can keep building. So in this case, we're looking at GG sales and we're matching it to itself, but then we're taking different columns. So some of the buys are going to be the same, but some of them aren't. So if I take GG sales first and then second, the first one I'm doing units and bud units by product. The second one I'm doing dollar and bud dollars by region. Then I'm merging those together, and then I get I get my hold file, which then becomes the old to the next match. Is there anything that can be done with match that cannot be done with SQL pass-through? So SQL pass-through, it depends. So if you're doing something like a union in your SQL pass-through, then you're going to get basically what we're seeing here with the old or new type of output. I don't know if you can do the old nor new or some of those other strange ones, or if it's in the one file but not the other going both directions. So I think that would be the only thing that maybe a match would give you over the pass-through. Most of the time in the pass-through, I just see joins, not necessarily any other matching. Is there anything? Maybe, yeah, so with a union would be, I'm going to run this select and I'm going to union it to the result of the next select. So that would be similar to a match with an old and or old or new match type. Okay, good questions. All right, so here I'm taking now the hold file that was created from the first match. I'm matching it to GG sales a third time, and I'm aggregating by date dollars and bud dollars. And then I get my final hold file. Notice in the final hold file, I have products, units, bud dollars, region. I have dollars, bud dollars, category. I have units again. I have bud dollars again. So when you have multiple fields with the same name, if you want to reference them in a request, you're probably going to have to use the alias. And since you're creating these using a hold, you're going to get the field name as units for the first one. The second one is going to be units, but then the aliases, because you're doing it as a hold file, is going to be EO1, EO2, EO3, etc. So you have to specify then specifically which E column you're looking at in your report. So the final report that I want to get out, I'm going to table file hold out, which was the result of all the matches. I'm printing product units, bud dollars, region dollars, bud dollars. And then notice I have E08, E09, E11, and E12. And those are to get those other columns with the same name that were further down in the line. Yeah, so Walter Blood mentions outputs in match are more varied. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. All right, so this E08, E09, E11, E12, I'm mentioning this because this is the old output where you had all of your first request columns are in order, second request columns are in order. The change that was made is we now group all of the like by fields into the same level. So if I have by country by car on one level, and then by country by car by model on the second, and then by country by car on the third, because the first and the third are by country by car, all of the verb objects are going to go up into the by country by car level on the output. So we changed the order of the hold file. And this is where the match column order setting comes in. So here's what the output looks like. So the new behavior is grouped. So again, all the fields with the common sorts are going to be grouped right after the buys. Ungroup goes back to the old behavior. So if you have reports that are using the E notation, E01, E02, in a report that came from a match, just make sure that you're getting the right columns you're expecting. Otherwise, you might have to set match column order to ungrouped. Okay. All right, so we're looking at file 1, which has country, DCost, 2 Englands, 2 Japans. File 2, F2, is going to have cars, so it has the 2 Jaguar Jensen for England and Datsun Toyota for Japan. So if I run it now, and both my verbs are summed, so I'm summing the first old file and then I'm summing the new file. What do I get for my output? Well, if I sum F1 by N, I'm going to get 2 outputs because I have 1 and 2. Country, I'm getting as England because when I sort an alpha field, I'm going to get the last value that I saw when I sorted. On the second row for 2, I'm going to see Japan. The DCost is going to add the values, so I get the 3007. And then for F2, I'm getting Jensen because, again, I'm getting the last value that I saw for the alpha, which was Jensen for N1. And then Toyota for N2. And then we add up the values. 5 and 6 is 11, 4 and 7 is 11. If I have print for the first, for the old file, I'm going to see the 4 records in F1, England, England, Japan, Japan. But then on the other side, because I've summarized based on what I had before, I'm going to have 1 Jensen 11,000. So I'm going to have the England 1,000, England 2,000 for the print, but then I'm going to see the Jensen 11,000 for the summarized for the new file. If I switch it and I do a sum and print, now I get England in 3,000, and then I see the individual details for F2. And then if I do print. So you may or may not remember that if I do a print verb, we add a last by order that you don't see called FOCUS. And we do that so that each row is going to be unique. So when you do the print, you're actually joining on FOCUS. So row 1 matches with row 1, row 2 matches with row 2. And that's why you get the 4 rows of output and not 16 like you might think. All right, and Strangely enough, there is no example of the code other than that slide. What I'll do is I'll add some examples before before we send out the presentations, just so that you have it. All right, let's see. In terms of report speed, does using a match have the same performance as using a union in a view, for example? All right, so if you're doing a union in a view, I'm assuming the view is a SQL view. So anything when you're dealing with relational tables that you can do in the relational engine, do it there. It's going to be much more efficient. Let me switch that question a little bit, and is match going to be more or less efficient than a join? So it could be less efficient because each of those old and new requests are full requests. So I'm going to run those. So if I have 1 million records in each of those files that I'm reporting against, I have to process all 1 million. Unlike if you did a join, where I'm going to read the host and then go out and get the correlating data in the cross-reference. So depending on what you're doing and how many rows you have, generally a join would be more efficient than a match. Let's see. What about possible combinations with match, like 4x4, 16? Not quite sure what you're looking for that. If you're going to do the possible combinations, you might want to do what I call a controlled Cartesian, where you're going to join the one file to another based on just a field that's not in the table. That way you're going to join something to each row on the other side. What will happen if the file 1 has 2 records with n equals 1, and file 2 has only 1 record? What will happen if file 1 has 2 records with n equals 1, and the file 2 has only 1 record with n equals 1? So if you're doing a print and a print, remember I said we have folk list, so it's gonna join the first record to the first n1 from the old file to the first output record in file 2. It's going to join the second n1 to the second record in file 2. But you're saying it's not there, so that's going to have null data. So you're still going to have 2 rows of output because you have 2 records coming from the old file. But then you're only going to have data for the corresponding row of the first match. I have found that file 1 should be the smaller of the 2 for efficiency. Any comments? It shouldn't matter. Depends on what you're doing. It depends on what your output match format type is going to be. If you're going to take only things from the new file or the old file and have that first, then yes, the first file should be smaller. All right. I think I understand your sum print and your print, but can you explain why Jensen got combined with Jaguar to get 11? For sum. So if I just run and I say I'm going to sum country and cost by n, the result of that old query is going to be England 3,000, Japan 7,000. Okay. Then I'm going to do on file 2, and I'm going to get the result. So I'm going to get the sum of car is going to be Jensen, because we're adding up car, But again, you can't add an alpha. So we're just overlaying the second value for the first. So the first time I read the record, I get Jaguar 5, but then the second record, I'm going to read Jensen, overlay the value for car, and then add up the 5 plus the 6 to get the 11. So I hope that explains that. So yeah. So when you're summing alpha fields, whatever you have last is what you're going to get. You're still going to you're still going to add up and sum the numeric values, but for alpha, you're only going to get the last value. All right. Devrim, if you could, when we send the surveys out next week, if you could put your question on the survey, because we might have some follow-up, because I'm not quite sure what you're asking for here. All right, I think I got all the questions. All right, thanks. All right, if there's no more questions, I will send this over to Renee.
Thank you, Walter.
Okay, I think I stopped.
Yes, you did. Let me share my screen. Give me a moment.
Okay, I see your WebFOCUS hub.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Really appreciate it. Hopefully, I have a jam-packed agenda, and as you know, I usually don't always get through everything that I had planned, but I will try to do so today. And Walter, I'm sure will keep me on track. We'll try to keep questions to the end, just for time and because there's a lot of information that I want to impart. So today's discussion is really all about 9.3 features. There's a lot of great videos out there, virtual user group that does a deep dive into this as well, but I wanted to kind of present it on my own, just in a different way, but very similar, of course. But really, I'm excited about the 9.3 features. There's a lot of great stuff. And one of the big things that you probably heard that was part of 9.3 was that InfoAssist reports and charts can open up in Designer now. And we've had a lot of great success with our customer base in doing so. And obviously there'll be caveats here and there. It's, it's not 100%, but I wanted to showcase that it does work. With all the stuff that I've worked with, it certainly has converted without an issue. But I thought it would be nice just to show you a few examples and to show you some subtleties that you might be aware of in terms of the code when it gets migrated in, and then if you do something, what might change. So I have category sales. This is actually a duplicate. I'm going to right click, and I'm in 9.3.1, by the way, in this environment. And I have the ability to edit, which would bring me into InfoAssist, edit with Designer, or edit with the text editor. And because I know there's a lot of coders out there, I'm just going to briefly show this in the text editor, just so that you have a reference and you can come back to the recording and you see you got a lot of graph APIs, and this is a chart request. Pretty straightforward. So I'll close that out. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to edit with Designer. That might take a little bit depending on how complex this request is. This request is not very complex, and you saw it through the conversion very quickly. I like to go out to Outline, Content, right-click, View Source, just so that you can see there's some subtle changes and everything like that, just based on the conversion. But it's straightforward, and certainly you can see preview, it's working, and if I run it, exactly what I would expect. This data is off a retail light, but it's against a flat file, so it will take a little bit longer. But you can see I did get my answer set back. And certainly what I could do is if I'm going to do this as a save as, just to keep what I have out there. And I'm just going to call this category sales designer. This is a reference. And now I've saved it, and I certainly could close this out. I could see that it's available. It's not published. I could publish it if I want. But now you can see I have only edit and edit with text editor. And if I go into edit, certainly now brings me into Designer. And I can make adjustments as appropriate. So that's just a regular standard chart. I thought it would be a good idea to show maybe a chart extension type as another example. So I'm going to here where I have some InfoAssist legacy content that I have. And let's pick chord extension. So I'm going to edit with text editor again, just to showcase it. And you can see there's quite a bit of graph API commands there. And then I'll close that out and I will come into edit with designer. You see it bordered in very quickly. And you remember with chart extensions, right, you go to format. You got extension properties here. If you bring up, you can make changes. You know, maybe I want the group padding to be something like, 7, just a little bit larger. So I could certainly make that type of change. And then if I want, I'm going to save this one as chord extension designer. Just again, because I don't want to impact what I already have out there just for demonstration purposes, but I certainly could have saved what I had and I didn't have to do a save as. And that's just me being cautious, and I know you guys understand that. So I'm going to save this. Yeah, save it right there. That's fine. Now I'm going to close this out. And certainly I could come back in. You can see I just created that. And I can edit. Now it's going to edit with designer. And of course, if I wanted to, let's say I really don't want this chart type, although the title says chord extension, I could change it to something like waterfall. And then, when you start changing chart types, the bucket thing, so there's 2 fields in car, I could change that and certainly could run it. And you could see absolutely designers behaving as it should, even with that conversion and then making changes after the fact. So I think it's very cool. I'm just going to exit out of this and leave it the way I had it, but you get the idea. I think the reports are an interesting topic. And I thought looking at joins and maybe whole files that might have been created in InfoAssist would be something useful just to be aware of. So I'm going to IA join report. I'm going to edit with the text editor just so that you could see it from a source code perspective. And you can see it's pretty straightforward, basic kind of request against, in this case, WF retail product. And there's a join explicitly being taken place within the code, right? And then there's some define, et cetera, so forth. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to edit with designer and come in. And it brought it in, no problem. And then I wanted to show it from a source code perspective and bringing it into the designer. You see that it kind of just changes it a little bit. You'll see some comment codes like that. So there is some subtle differences that you will see. And certainly if I run this, it absolutely runs as appropriate. So the conversion took place. But the thing I wanted to make note of is right now when we do the migration from InfoAssist into designer, and you're doing joins or joins with extracts and everything, we try to pull in exactly what you have and not really touch that piece of it. But if you were to go to the data tab now, and I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to go to the data tab and come back to visualization. And data tab automatically, if you go there and come back, it's going to do an update. And I wanted you to see that what it did was it really kind of just in this case, because it was just a join, it kind of changed the join a little bit, right? The way it looks and everything. But the underlying functionality is still going to work exactly as it did. And I know, again, this is a kind of basic request, but I wanted to showcase that difference just so that you're aware of the behavior and why things happen the way they're happening. It's because you went to the data tab and now we're bringing that data flow and all of that functionality in it. So it's going to change things. And just as one more option, so I'm
Renee?
just going to leave. I'm not going to, yes.
There's a question. Can you make those changes into an InfoAssist created effects in Designer and then save them so that they can still be used and opened in InfoAssist?
Once you make the changes and you save it, you've now made it a designer request. So if you want both, and do a save as so that you can still have designer and then have IA separate. But once it makes the changes, it makes the changes, and you save it, it's saved. So you're kind of converting it, right? It's really not just to have both options and when you can open up in either two. You really kind of have to make a choice. But you can also have the choice of having both still the InfoAssist original version if you want that, and then do a save as in Designer. And that's kind of why I'm showcasing this too, because you could do that just to see what happens, how the code changes. And remember, there's a lot more functionality that's now available in Designer that's not necessarily available in InfoAssist that you want to leverage. So, but my point in just demonstrating this was, one, to show you that it's successful, but two, to show you there are differences and to be aware of how those differences do take place, and so that you can make the most informed decision to meet your business requirements.
Thank you.
All right. And then the other one, which is probably the most important, the one that you're probably the most interested in, is what if I had join and hold, right? And so I'm going to edit with the text editor again, just to showcase it. And here you're going to see I am doing the join with emp data and training. That'll bring you back, right, to those legacy files. And then tabling that and putting that to a whole file, actually a permanent whole file in IBI stamp, and then tabling that whole file. Okay. So let me just take that request and see if I right click it. Okay, it does give me the option to edit with Designer. I'm going to do that. Put it in. You can see it does have the whole file extract. I'm seeing that reference there. That's a good sign. Everything looks as it should. And then you'll see I have the join. So you can see a lot of the code is exactly kind of the way it was without any changes on our part, or very few. Right. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did with the last example. I'm going to go to the data tab. I'm not going to make any changes. I'm just going to come right back to visualization. But again, underlying that is all that functionality, and it does change the underlying source code. And there is a lot of code that gets generated here with SQL and table, and that's all from that data flow in order to accommodate the way Designer does things versus InfoAssist. They are different in the way they do create extracts and everything. So for that reason, that's why you'll see that type of change. But again, that change only took place because once I migrated, I actually went to the data tab and potentially was saying, oh, you want to make changes, then we have to incorporate what Designer supports. So I just wanted to showcase that. But of course, it still runs and still produces the output. So again, that's really just a showcase of our premier feature. And I think that's a really important feature to say, hey, that we can migrate those InfoAssist requests into Designer. I know App Studio, we're still looking into getting that into Designer and everything, but I wanted to showcase that those types of capabilities, and that you will see that it really does convert as you would expect. Now, I want to move on to some other topics. So let me go into a sample that I have here, retail revenue sales report. Open that up that I have. And this is in Designer, of course. And it's using WF Retail Lite. It's a little complex report that I put together, but I wanted to showcase one of my favorite features. And I'm not saying that the InfoAssist to Designer conversion isn't a fantastic feature. It absolutely is. But having set commands within the tool. So you can see there's this little icon over here, and if I hover over it, I'll get that option. But I wanted to showcase in this report, I do have missing data. That's probably no data, you know, the no data setting, and you can see the period by default. So I want to be able to set that. In the past, you'd have to save this at Designer and then maybe have another text editor procedure that set no data to what you wanted to, and then dash included this. That was a little bit of work. Here's a set command, and we actually gave you a lot more set commands than are even available in InfoAssist. And we'll add to this. Certainly, if there's things that you're looking for sooner rather than later, please contact support, let us know. That helps us make the appropriate enhancements that will benefit the most of our customer base. So I can set no data and check it. There's a period there. If I delete it, it tells you got to put something there. So I'm just going to put n/a, and I'll click OK. And I'm not going to run this report, but I just wanted to showcase it, that if you look at, just let it run. And it is going against, by the way, I have all data in this example. So you'll see now, you see n/a for the missing data. Of course, you could have whatever you want, but that's just to showcase the feature. And there's so many other options there to leverage. There's not time to go through all the settings, but certainly you could take a look at it. But we gave you a nice list. And again, it's not every set command, but it's definitely more comprehensive than what InfoAssist currently has available. Another option that I wanted to showcase is, let me just change the output, let's say to PDF as an example. And let me add, I don't know, sale year, just to give you some ideas of some things you can do, obviously, in the tool that you're probably familiar with. Adding a static filter here of sale year for 23, 24. Maybe I want to change the format, output with landscape, and, you know, this is an example. So I wanted to showcase that there is, you know, these options that you get in the drop down in the format tab change depending on what you have available in your report or chart and your visualization. I have totals there, so I have the totals. I have an across, which is the column groups, so I have that option. But columns, and we added this option on the very bottom, column width, where you can fit the content, which is the default, fit the field length, or custom width. And I know they were doing even more work on this, but if you, let's say I just did something like, you could see the revenue per item and the spacing in between there. Let me just pick revenue per item as just something quick to show. And let me say fit the field length. I'm pretty sure, I think it was like, that's a calculated field with a D20, it's a computed field. Just let it run, you'll see the spacing increase there. Again, that's probably not what I want for this report, but I'll put it back, but I kind of wanted to showcase that you can make that type of change. I'll fix the content, so you could see that, and then I'll just put all columns just to go back. But just I wanted to showcase that is additional functionality that is available within 9.3. Now, some of the other things I wanted to go to quickly is output format. So in the output settings is where you'll see your availability in terms of what you have for your output format in the upper right-hand corner here. I have PDF, so for PDF, you know, we allow for accessibility. You can check that, and that can be enabled. That's a 9.3 feature. Or let's say I have also PowerPoint. I could run that. I just if I ran this just so that you could see it from a report perspective, let me just run the PDF output. But yeah, let me run that first. Again, it's going against all the data. So it's there's a lot of pages here, but you can see 2023, 2024 row totals, and then the next, etc. But I just wanted to showcase the output for PDF. Now, I certainly could pick PowerPoint. You see there's really not options much here, but you do have the ability, obviously, to control portrait, landscape, and page margins, etc. I'm going to skip XLSX and HTML. I'm going to come back to that. CSV has been there since 9.2, but I'd like to mention it because if you pick CSV, people might think, oh, well, I can't create a tab delimited file from Designer. You can. If you pick CSV, you'll see that you get these options, and you can choose whether or not you want to do CSV with header, without header, or tab with header and without header. So I'm just going to leave it as the default of CSV with header, let it run. And it'll just take a little bit because it is a lot of data. And then I could see, okay, I got my little box there, but let me open that up. And you can see I have the header with the data. And of course, I could go through for time. I'm not going to go through these, but certainly these options are available to you, and I wanted to point it out in case you're not aware that they're there. There's also JSON and XML that we added at the 9.3 level. You won't have styling options, which makes sense based on the nature of those formats. But if I pick JSON, you'll see the output for JSON generated in a moment. And let that run so you can see that for yourself. And then I could also change it to XML. And I'll let that run. So you have those options, and again, those are in 9.3. Now let me go back to what I love is HTML and XLSX, because there's a good chance besides PDF, those are the ones that you're going to be looking at, and there's a lot of features. So with HTML, one thing that we enable, you have accessibility also is an option, again, 9.3. You can enable title pop-ups if you have descriptions on your field. So if I just run this, that's checked by default. Just let it run just so that it can hover over and show you that the titles, because there were descriptions, you can see the little box come up like, right, and quantity of product sold. So you could see that. And of course, if I uncheck it, you will not see that. That obviously you're disabling that capability. So the choice is up to you. And again, this is if you have descriptions that are part of your field. See, you see it not displaying. I'll re-enable it, doesn't matter. Other features that, again, were in the underlying product that we now have enabled through design or through the tool is table of contents. If I just put that option and run it, I'll get the report output displayed. Just give it a moment. And then you'll see upper left-hand corner here a little icon. Double click that, I can get a table of contents here where maybe I want to go to video production or total. Of course, I can move that, sorry. Or I could say the entire report on and off if I wanted to, or maybe remove the table of contents completely. And then it'll tell you to double click if you want to come back. And certainly I could double click it and then you'll see it come back. I'm just showcasing the feature just so that you're aware of what it is. Then accordion, if I run that, great feature. A lot of customers love this option, as appropriate, of course. But you'll see that it's, and then you can actually expand it. It's class, right? And let's see, computers and then smartphone, and then I can see all of the models appropriate with it. And it's respecting the fact that at that level that I don't want the value for revenue and quantity sold to be displayed in this particular example. So output's exactly what I was looking for. Great feature. Pages on demand, obviously let it run on the server, but I can get the pages delivered to me, and for efficiency, especially if it's a rather large report. And then you can see I can navigate through the pages or go to the end, search as appropriate. So, but the favorite is freeze. This helps you freeze the column titles, and you'll see it. Let me just update it and let me run it. And then you can see when I'm scrolling, you can see the titles and the total are frozen. Great feature. And again, that's all enabled and available to you. Now, the other output option I want to mention is XLSX, because there's a lot of great options that are there that you might not be aware of. And a lot of this has been enabled at the 9.3 level. So I want to mention, let's do table of contents, and let's pick generate native Excel formula. That would only happen if you have a compute. My revenue per item field is a computed field. And table of contents is going to break out on the high order sort field into different worksheets within the workbook created. And let me just run that real quick. Just give it a chance to get the output. And then you can see I have the tabs down here. And then also you could see that the formula is calculated. Because I don't have the values there, it's still calculating because it sums up, so it's still able to do the calculation for those, but maybe I would want those values here if I was doing truly XLSX format. But just to showcase, those features do indeed work and are easily to enable. So let me close that out. And let's just say I wanted to take off generate form, but I want to show freeze. Freeze with Excel just on its own. But I want to show you a separate option that you can add with a style sheet. It's not enabled through the tool, but you certainly can leverage it through a style sheet. I'm going to keep this and display it out for you. And here now you can see that as I scroll through, you can see the titles, right? The report and the column titles are all fixed, so they're frozen. And I wanted to showcase this other option, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to General, and instead of leaving the default design in 2018, I'm going to actually pick up a custom style sheet that I have in my repository, and it's with freeze column N2. And I'll let this run, and then actually really quick showcase going to retail demo. And I'll open up that style sheet just so that you could see at the top here on type report, I have this command, which is freeze dash column equal N2 for the first N2 columns. Close that out. And now back to the report. And let me check my downloads. This was a minute ago, so let me open that up. I think I ran it. Let's see. Did I not run it? Okay, let me come back here and let me just make sure, right, I have that, and let me run. And open. And now, of course, you can see the titles are still frozen and everything, right? But the added advantage of that freeze column is it froze the first N2 columns, product category and product subcategory as well. This is not a very wide report because I limited the years for the across and everything, but you get the idea of how powerful that feature can be. And then I just want to showcase one last thing. And I can come back and let's put this designer 2018 real quick. And let's go back to output settings. And I'm going to enable Excel tables. Now, Excel tables, if you're going to do that, it allows the sort fields on each of the columns. The caveat in using this feature is that you cannot have an across field. I'm going to close and delete the sale year for this particular example. Come back to format so you can see I do have enable tables and freeze. And I'm going to run that. I'm spending a lot of time on this because output formats are very important and typically a lot of questions that we see into support. So I thought it would be useful to go through it here. So now you can see that I have these little drop downs and everything, very useful. You'll notice it has my table 1 because I just did it with without the table of contents enabled and everything. And it took my table as that name that I put there with an _1 associated with it. One thing you might notice is that the column titles here, because they're numerics, right? They're right justified, and we would really want them to be left justified because of the drop downs with this feature. So just to showcase how you can do that, I'm going to change this to table of contents just so you can see the difference in how you get multiple worksheets in the tables that are there. But I'm also going to actually come over here and go to columns, and then I'm going to say title. And for all columns, I'm going to left justify. And then you should see revenue, quantity sold, and revenue per item also now, just in preview real quick, right? They're now left justified, and let me run that real quick. And open that up. And now you can see that. And you can see also I have tables here, table 1 through 7, because I had 7 product categories, and I could pick table 4 here, and it brings me to media player. But just, again, just trying to showcase as much as possible so that you can get the most out of the product. Really great features that I believe that are available to you with release 9.3. So I'm going to move on to the next feature. And I know I'm starting to get close on time, but I still have quite a bit to talk about. So I'm going to leave this without any changes. And I want to show you Compose Document. The Compose Document was there even in 9.2, but we now enable you to author new content if you want to. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a page. So now I'll have 2 pages, page 1 and page 2. I'm going to make this landscape. That'll impact also all pages as well. I'm going to come to page 2, and for my content for this page, I want to add some. Let's see, go here, and let me add. Let's see, a store region chart. By default, when you just double click, it'll put it on there. It's always 3.5 by 5 in terms of height and width. I'm going to reposition this on, again, I am on page 2 here, the canvas. I haven't done anything with page 1, and I'll just position that, something like that. And then let me put a store region report on, and I'll move that and just adjust that accordingly. And it looks pretty good. Maybe open wider a little bit and maybe make that a little bit wider. Okay, that's all I wanted to do for that page. Pretty straightforward. Now, the cool stuff, the new stuff. I'm going to come back. You could add pages. You could have multiple pages even in 9.2. I'm going to come back to page 1. Now, of course, page 2 is still there, what I have. With page 1, though, I'm actually going to author new content. And the way you do that is by this plus add container option. When you click that, it's going to ask you for a data source. I'm going to pick retail samples and WF Retail Light, and I'm going to create a component. And I'm actually going to change this component here because I still have my content picker, and I can change that. I'm going to make it a standard report. And maybe I'm going to move this, so reposition it, take a good part of the whole page here. Give me a second. And let's see, maybe make that a little bit, adjust a little bit accordingly. Doesn't have to be too fancy. I just want to try to make it. And then I'm actually going to build this really quick. I'm going to put a revenue, MSRP, gross profit. I'll add sale year to the column groups. To my source field, I'll add store business region, product category, product subcategory. Maybe I'll limit the years here as well and filter out just to limit scope of what I'm seeing, 2023, 2024. Maybe the overall font of the report, maybe change that to an 8 so it's just a little bit smaller. I'm trying to fit everything in that I want to fit. And I think I have what I want there for the most part. So what I wanted to show you is, okay, we have the ability now here to actually, with new content, not only can you add the new content, but you can actually create headings and footings. If you right-click on it, edit heading. So right here, I can put actually, you know, I don't know, just highlight it and just put some text here, you know, say region product sales report, something like that. And then I could highlight it. I could, you know, obviously increase the size. I'll keep bold. Maybe I want to center that. I can change the color as appropriate. I can have another line. Maybe I want to say something like draft version. And here in Composer, you can actually, it'll respect alignment on the different lines. So I can make that, change that maybe to size 14 and make that less justified. And I'll keep that bold. And I'm going to change that color just to stand out and apply.
Renee?
Really as easy as, yeah.
Does this have a PowerPoint option?
If you look at it, you do have PowerPoint. Yes, you do.
And so Devram has lots of questions and comments, but his last one was the heading feature is awesome.
Yeah, and it's not just heading, guy. I know it is, and it is. It's because it's really important for new content. It really is very, very useful, and that's why I wanted to showcase it. But not only that, if you go back to settings, you can disable the heading if you didn't want it. See, so you can see I can uncheck it and it's gone. I'll recheck it, but the footing, now you can add the footing too. Woo-hoo. I mean, this is exciting stuff. I really do believe this is stuff that you need. And then here I'm just going to say like runtime, maybe add a system variable or something like that, and you know, make the date, maybe amper TOD, and then maybe just make this a little bit bigger, bold. I'll leave the justification and just change the color, and I'll apply that. So now you can see that I have the footing as well too. Really, and you know, this is good stuff. Now I have that on page 1. Let me just run this with PDF. I think I did all that I did, assuming that I didn't skip something here. There is a lot of input variables in some of the content I had. I'm just going to submit it with everything the way it is and just let it run. By the way, Walter, how much time do you need for the last presentation? Do I have at least maybe 10 more minutes?
Yeah, I can give you 10 more minutes. Yeah.
Can you give me, yes, thank you.
Yeah, this is really good stuff.
It is. And I try to cram in as much as I could, guys. You know me. I've always been one that I never have enough time because I'm so excited about what I want to present and the information that I want to give you, because forewarned is forearmed. And if I can tell you about the features that are available to you, there is a lot of data. I'm sorry. It just takes a little bit of time. But here now you can see I have my report, which goes across multiple pages. And, you know, maybe I could just show it that way so you can see it. And then you can see that last page is generated. Now, I'm not just showing you this just to show you that capability in the headings and footings. There's actually another great feature that they did add. I'm going to close that out, and that's the coordinated field feature. So based on the reports I have, store business region, I can actually put that in here to coordinate it. So my output can be based off of store business region. How cool is that? So now I did that. That's the only change I made. I'm going to run that. Again, it does take a little bit of time to run because it's going against all the data. And I deliberately, like I said, I have this in flat file format, but just want to showcase real quick because that is an extremely powerful feature that you can coordinate. And just give it a moment. And store business region has 4 values. You have North America, EMEA, et cetera, so forth, Oceania, just to showcase it. So give it another little bit there.
So while we're waiting, oh, here we go.
Okay. Oh, there. So sorry. So here you can see I have EMEA and then the EMEA information from that second page. And now I have North America. And I have North America. And if I wanted to, as a last thing, and I'm not going to actually run this, but I'll just showcase it real quick, I can edit the heading. And if I wanted to, this is cool, guys, I can actually put like maybe the store business region in the heading. So let me put another line right there, and I'm going to drag that field in here in the heading and see it, apply it, and then you'll just see in the canvas, you'll see North America, and if I ran it, it would have the same exact impact as well. So I know we're running short on time, and I still have a few things I do want to show. So I know there's some questions. Let's try to leave it for the end. I apologize, but again, I'm just trying to give you as much information as possible. So I'm going to close this out and leave it. And I just wanted to create a brand new visualization because I wanted to just showcase some things with maps that I think are very cool, you might not be aware of. I'm going to go into WF Retail Lite with as a visualization. And then I'm going to pick the map option from the content template, the content picker. If you do that, it's going to tell you once you select the map chart type, you can't convert it. That's because there's a lot involved with maps. So then I'm going to add a data layer and I'm going to pick proportional. And now I'm going to pick out store country. And double click it, it'll go into the location bucket. And then you'll see I have my little dots for, you know, Canada and the US, et cetera, so forth. So some of the cool things that are actually available to you is you can actually do a parameter field list with maps now. You did with reports and charts, but it's available with maps. And so if I click this, I'm just going to call this prompt tooltip. It helps if I spell it right, but it doesn't really matter in terms of execution. Tooltip selection. And there's 6 different kinds of buckets that you could do for selection. I'm going to pick tooltip. For charts, for maps, it is single select. For report, if you were to do this for type of report, you allow you multiple select. But I'm going to save that. And that's all I'm going to do. What it does, actually, there's one more thing I can do. What it does is it creates this little placeholder in the tooltip bucket that's purple, and then it puts a filter bucket in here, and this is where you can put your fields from your request. I'm going to put revenue, MSRP, gross profit, and just for time purposes, I'm just going to put those 3. And sorry, I zoomed in and out there on you, but let me just run this. and you have to make a selection. It doesn't allow you to do the default like it does for a regular chart and report, so you do have to make a selection, but let me just pick revenue and run it. And here we go. And now when I hover over, you can actually see the revenue for the United States and then here with Canada. But then of course I could change this if I want to MSRP. And if I run it, then you'll see the tooltip value changes. All right, so now you see MSRP. See how that could be a really powerful feature, just something to be aware of. Now, another great thing that we did actually is now on the location field on maps, if you right click, you can actually configure drill down. Great. So now our drill down feature capability, which I did like in an earlier presentation earlier this year that goes into more depth if you want to take a look at it. But I just wanted to showcase here. Let me do something like URL. And I don't know, I'll just do like www.ivi.com, just to put something there. And certainly I could add parameters and everything, and maybe I'll double click and change the name, although this is a single one, the IVI URL. And just for time purposes, because we are out of time, I could run this and then it wouldn't give me an option. It would just, I could just click it and it would show me the URL. But here I'm going to add another drill down, and I'm going to pick content here for this one to drill down into some content. And I'm going to go, sorry, give me a second where I'm at. Small widgets I want to go into. There we go. And I think, let me see which one I wanted. Store country product report. That's the one I want. And then, of course, I have to adjust appropriately if I want to pass that value in. You can see here that that's the country name. And let me just associate it with the country name for my request and apply it. And now let me run it. And of course, I just have to make do gross profit this time just so that you could see that difference. And now, if I click, you can see now, I see gross profit, but I have the IBI URL that I can click. That brings me to that URL. Or hover over and I could say, go to drilling item 2, which I didn't change the title on. But let me just click that. And you can see here for the URL. If I go to the end, you can see it passed in the United States. Very, very cool. And of course, I could do the same and pick, you know, like if I was here, and then it would be for obviously Canada and everything. I could update that title. Of course, I didn't do that here. And then just a quick last thing to showcase. There's this little gear up here that gives you the map properties. There's general map properties, but there's the data layer as well. And then you have the ability here now with shape. You can pick a custom file, and you can get either from the repository or URL. Just for time, I'm not going to be able to showcase that, but you could certainly do that, or pick SVG as well. Really nice, cool stuff. So just that's all 9.3 capabilities to be aware of. And just, I know I'm really out of time. I always leave Walter, I always leave you with very little time to the end, but I want to showcase briefly, and maybe we'll do something separate on creating a portal. So I'm going to go and create a portal, and we've done it, and now we have the whole front end UI, really nice. I'm just going to say, you know, retail portal 2024, just to put something there, and RPT 20. I'll just say RPT 2024, something like that. And you could change the location if you want. And this creates it and then brings you into the user environment. That's kind of similar to what you've seen with Designer. And I just want to showcase here, you have the general information that I just added with the extra maximum width, or you can change that as appropriate. You have components, you can add a new section, a new page, and then you can go to your content. I just want to showcase this real quick. I'm literally like 3 minutes tops. I'm going to add a new section. There's a section 1, you can change that. I'm just going to close that out. And now I'm going to go to content, and let me just go to add some content here. And here, I'll add, put it on top of that. And I'll do it, I could do it as copy or do it as a link. I'm going to just do it as a link. And you can see that's in there because when I do the arrows, that is part of that. And then maybe regional sales trends. And you can see that's there. And then I'm actually just going to put another section here real quick. Now I have a section 2, close out the property. Let me go to content and let me add some other content there. Just directly. So it doesn't have to be a page. It can be directly content. That's what I'm doing. I'm just doing it link. But if you copy it, it would be part of that. And now I have those 2, but let me add another component. I'm going to add a page because here's the really cool part. I'll put page there so you can see page is part of it, and I can certainly change the name there with the properties, and you can see that's part of it. But here you can right-click, edit, and watch how quick I do this. I know this is just, again, for demonstration sample purposes, but I'm going to do something real quick, and I'm going to go into reports and charts, and I'm just going to add this content, heat map, top 10 products, trend by month, report details. And then I don't want the page heading on this, so I'm going to actually uncheck that. So it's not even going to be there. Now you can see I have that, and I'm actually going to just save it. I let the report details just finish this. Good. Okay. And now I saved it. Now that's there. And I'll showcase this in a minute, but I just want to run this. And you can see, oh, by the way, everything you do here, the changes are saved automatically for you, right? So I just want to run it just so that you can see something real quick in the display, and you'll see how it looks. This is the Designer 2018 theme that you're seeing, and then you'll see category sales run. Now I wanted to showcase that. I'm going to just close the general part up and open the theme and just showcase it really quick. What if I did midnight and ran it? Save the changes right away. Now you can see the impact with midnight. And of course, I'll let that just display really briefly. But I could do page 1 here, and now you can see the impact to that page that I quickly created that's part of that section 2. And I could let it run just so that you see some of the reports and everything. So just real quick. Nice. I love that all the options that we give you. I'm just going to close that out. I'm going to put it back to Design 2018. And then content. You could do live preview here if you wanted to. So if I do that, and let's say I was on page 1, you can see it's going to start giving me that information. We do put this little information there saying that, you know, it could affect the performance when you're in here, but sometimes it's just useful rather than having to do a run. You can do this quick check it, and then you can disable it as quickly as that. Navigation, important. Right, by default, you get the side navigation, but if I want the top, you can see how I can navigate here. It's as easy as that, or maybe I want top and side. So you see I have the top here, and then I can change it there. I'll leave it to side navigation, but you get the idea. The banner, very cool stuff. I could say, you know what, I don't want to enable that banner, or I do, but I don't want to see the title here. I love the logo stuff here. You could have a custom logo, and I do want to showcase this really quick. Go into, retail demo, and I want to go into demo images. I'm going to pick the Join IBI Community logo, and then maybe I just want to say IBI Community as a tooltip. And then I can make it a link to a URL. So maybe I want to make that community.ibi.com. I know it's a plug, but hey, it's great information out there, so wanted to showcase it. And now it's saving. If I run it, you'll see the logo. Hover over it, you'll see the tooltip. And if I run it, you'll see I come to community.ibi.com. Did exactly what I wanted to do. And then just the last thing, last minute, the enable user menu, you can completely disable it if you want. And when I run it now, you'll see this up here in the upper right-hand corner is grayed out. But certainly if I wanted to, I can enable it, and maybe I only wanted to maybe leave the help, change password, and sign out. And now if I run it, that menu that is available, but you see only those options. So I know I'm out of time, but that really did showcase most of what I did want to show, and it was very quick, but you can come back to the recording and listen to at your leisure, and certainly reach out or via the surveys and let me know. I'll be more than happy to address any questions and everything. And I'm sorry, Walter, I know I took quite a bit of your time.
It's okay. There's some questions.
let me stop sharing. Okay. Questions, let's see.
So yeah, start with the QA.
Yeah, the timeline, we're looking to do it as fast as possible. We recognize that it's important, but there's a lot of, with App Studio, the complexity of App Studio, right, adds to the challenges in doing that. But that's obviously a top priority for us. Is it possible to focus on a particular state on maps? That can all be done depending on how you want to do it and what layer, and you could actually have shape files available to you in terms of maps. Without showing data on the map, you saw I only had the location field. I didn't even do anything else on the map that I did, just as an example. I know that was with countries, but you could do that with states and maybe just have tooltips like I was showing if you even wanted to. It could be just drill downs, like I did showing configured drill downs. And will there be an option to have multi-level sections for section 1, section 2? Great question. Not sure if there's a feature on it, but I know it has probably come up, so that's probably a request. I'll certainly let product management know, but if you're really interested in that, put it in the survey, and I will bring it up with them. But you can always open up a case as well. But I will mention it because definitely, I'm sure you're not going to be the only customer that's made that request.
And Devram has, Devram has some comments in the chat, but you could probably reply to him directly, or it's like, is this available, or this would be nice type of things.
Yeah, because we're out of time, kind of, but so I can follow up on that. Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Walter. I did it again.
No problem.
Okay.
All right. So that concludes the non-mainframe part of the session. So we're going to go into mainframe only. If you drop, please remember that you'll be getting a follow-up next week, which will have a link to the survey. If you could please fill those out. If you're non-mainframe, you feel free to drop, or you can hang around if you really want to. All right. Let's give people time to run if they want to. Okay, so I'm going to talk about right now Focus, the Focus product, focus on the mainframe. And we talked about different components. Today, I'm going to talk about how do you start or just run a Focus session. You installed, now what do you do? So if you're going to run interactively, you're going to need minimally a C-list or a Rex. And all you really need, again, minimal, is an errors allocation and a call to the Focus executable, which is in foclive.load. When you do the installation for version 7.7 and higher, we have a sample C-list that would be in conf.data. It's called Focus C, the C meaning C-list, which will give you already set up to run C-list based on the high-level qualifier that you did when you installed. And that's what you get. Notice you get a lot more than minimal. In the minimal, if I don't have a master or a focus exec allocated, but I have one. And what I mean by have one is I have one that's called myid.master.data, myid.focusexec.data. When it comes time to use those, we will automatically look for those. And if we find them, we will do the allocation for you. If you don't have one physically, then you're just not going to have that particular DD allocated automatically. If you're running in batch, your minimal JCL is going to be a program equals focus. You need your step lib telling it where it goes to, unless you have it in linked list, your errors, and you should also have a sysout and a sysprint. The sysout isn't as important as the sysprint, but you definitely have to have a sysprint. The sys, that sys-yn should be sys-in, not y. Take the y out, the second y. And this is where you would put your focus code if you wanted to do a table request here, maybe do an allocation. And then you have to have a fin. Before you finish the procedure, you should always have a fin before the end of your session, or in this case, your JCL. Again, we provide sample JCL for you, and this is in conf.data again, and it's just called focus. Note that we have in sysin, put your input here in uppercase. Those are your focus commands, and then we end it with the fin. If you're starting Focus Studio, which is brand new, you're going to have in conf.data an frun JCL, which is going to be a proc. So it establishes a proc that has all of the DD allocations necessary to start the Focus Studio server. You'll also have in conf.data an fstart, and the fstart is your JCL that is used and calls the frun JCL proc. All right, some files that you might see in your Focus sessions. We got FocExecs, those are your procedures. If you also run WebFOCUS, those would be your files that end in .fex. Master is your metadata, describes the tables or the files that you're reporting against. Those would be your .masses. Access FocSQL is additional metadata. So if it's a relational table, the column names that you're accessing would be in the master, but then the physical connection and table name would be in the access or FocSQL. Errors would contain all your error messages, and it could also contain configurations. So that would be your .err, your .cfg, and your .prf. Folk library are executables. It would be similar to an exe file or a DLL file. Folk style would have your style sheets. Fuse lib, user lib are all your written subroutines. We used to ship them. Most of everything now in the 7.7 world is shipped under folk lib. But because you might have JCL or CList already established that still reference Fuse lib, user lib, then we make sure that we have the alias pointing to folklib.load so that your old code will still run. Okay. FUS recs. These are rec subroutines. So did you know you can write your own rec subroutines and then call them from Focus as a user-written subroutine? Well, you can. And then if you do, you're going to have it in this fuzzrecs DD name. And I'll be presenting that sometime next year. If you're using Focus Windows, you might have a TRF file. A TRF file is an exported Windows file. If you have the compiled version, it would be WinForm. And then lastly, I have FocComp. Notice I have asterisks with WinForm and FocComp because those are old legacy. Those are really not supported in the 7.7 and higher world. Some work files that you might see pre-allocated in your JCL or in your CList. So we have hold, save, B, folk sort. Hold, save, B are hold files, save files. Folk sort is if you're doing any focus sorting and aggregation. That's our work file to do that. Some notes. Errors allocation needs to be able to find your F license if you're running version 7, 6, 10 and higher. And for all versions, you also need to have access to a folk parm. So the folk parm has things like different settings that you're going to set when Focus starts up. If either are not found, Focus will not start. folklib.load also needs to have an IBI CPU ID, which is the licensing control program. So we have a number of customers that will go through the iSetup install process, get everything the way they want, and then they copy the files over to another high-level qualifier. So if you're doing that, pay attention, because when you install using iSetup, your high-level qualifier errors.data is an alias to conf.cfg. Conf.cfg contains a member called $rel DDS. $rel DDS contains two entries for errors, HLQ conf.prf and HLQ .f.home.err. And what this does is when you start Focus, we go look for this member, and if it's there, we will take your the errors.data, which is conf.cfg. So you'll have conf.cfg concatenated with conf.prf concatenated with f.home.err. So when you're done, your errors concatenation, your errors DD will have those 3 files available to it. So a lot of times when you copy it over, if you don't know that this is here, then you never changed your high-level qualifier in $rel DDS. And when you try to go to it, you might have removed it. It might not be there anymore, and you might have an error. Or you might have some configuration files that were in here that you needed in the new high-level qualifier, and they're not being found because you're still pointing to the old ones. Okay, I already said that. If you run in batch and your batch job ends with a condition code 8, the common reason that that's happening is because the fin was missing. So make sure that you have a fin at the end of your sysyn. If you don't have a fin, you will definitely get a condition code 8. Everything else in the procedure will still run. You're just going to get condition code 8. And last, I want to talk about traces. So the easiest way to turn traces on is on the calls. So in CList, on your call to focus, you just add an extra parm -trace on. And in JCL, you can add a parm equals /-trace on. Now, these traces will capture everything from the very startup of the product till the end. You can also turn traces on inside of a procedure. So if you don't want to have traces on for everything, then, and we probably don't want you to turn traces on for everything if you're having an issue, just before like a table request that's been identified as having a problem, you can turn traces on by doing a -run, set trace on equals all, set trace user equals on, and then a -run. So why the 2 -runs? The -run at the top is so that anything that's in the stack prior to this will get run and flushed. Then we turn traces on. And then in case you have Dialog Manager after this, we don't want that to run until traces are turned on. So we do the 2 sets and do the -run to force that it's executed before anything after it. So let's say you have multiple table requests and you only want to trace the one of them. Well, at the end of the one you're tracing, you can put a -run, set trace user equals off. When you do this, and even when you do the -trace on, all traces will go to a DD in your job, if it's batch, or in your TSO TSU job with your ID, and it will be called DD TSCOM3. And that is all. So I gave you as much time as I could, and I'm still on time, Renee. So we're all good. So if there's any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we'll look at wrapping this up.
Thank you, Walter, for the extra time. Appreciate it. And you got it, and you finished on time too. Wow. I'm impressed.
I try to plan a little extra for you.
I should do that.
All right, Brad, see you at 2:30. All right, so if there's no questions, thanks everyone for coming. We'll see you. Well, I'll see you next month. Renee won't be here, but we'll have somebody in her place who isn't going to be. It's not going to be a designer, unfortunately, but it will be data migrator. So if you're using it, or if you're thinking of using data migrator, there should be some good information next month.
And that's very cool. And I will be back in the beginning of next year, so no worries. There'll be a lot of designer coming up.
Yeah, this isn't permanent.
Yeah.
All righty.
All right.
Thanks everyone for coming.